you looked at it, different communities in our country and their different priorities, for example, and that negotiation was not easy. Sometimes it, led to the partition of the country. No, so above all, communities I'm referring to, as well as two-nation theory, which is something very important, and you need to understand it, what it is. So before going to the reading word by word, let me explain these two very important concepts. Community, of course, refers to a particular kind of group, either religious or caste or whatsoever. In reference to that particular thing, you remember the name of B.R. Ambedkar, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and of course, conservatives and fundamentalists from the Hindu community. So all of them trying to represent a community. And if you looked closely in the footnotes, you found that B.R. Ambedkar and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, they both were not in support of having a constituent assembly, because they thought that until and unless we are able to negotiate some kind of compromise so that the rights and dignities of the minorities and the depressed castes, they are protected, we will not allow the conservative Indian upper caste people to control the institution. Otherwise, they will not give us what we deserve. No, so that is where we start. That is the point of contention. Communities and so on. So if you look at the Constituent Assembly, and this is a very well-remembered quotation from Jawaharlal Nehru himself, that the Indian Constitution shall not be a gift from some foreign power. It shall not be done by having some kind of communities and trying to make some kind of balance between them. It is not a balancing act. It is constitution making is an expression of a particular idea, a particular ideal. I told you when I was referring to the political science and the virtues that we can derive after understanding, for example, classical political theory. Yeah, Ernest Barker, a very famous political theorist, political philosophy in the contemporary times, probably title, copies and pastes the Indian Constitution, the preamble of the Indian Constitution in his book, and declares that whatever lies in that book is pithily summarized by that very preamble, because that preamble serves the largest national group in the world, largest number of people anywhere in the world living under a democratic framework. So if I can explain that particular thing, and of course, Granville Austin, you must be told about a little bit about him. Otherwise, you will not be interested in his work. A very thorough researcher, came to India in the 1950s, 60s, was working at the University of Chicago. These people who come from foreign countries to study India, what are they called? They're called Indologists. Those who come to study India. All right, those who study India. And there are two categories within that. One is obviously they call them Indophile, and the other is Indophobic. The one who love India, and the others who are afraid or they have some kind of fear of India. So he's an Indologist, and of course you see how he declares, and I'll just move quickly to the reading now. So Gandhi was the first one, as I told you earlier, in 1921, declaring that 1922, that Swaraj is not going to be a gift from somebody. Swaraj is an expression of the very Indian soul, and it also tells about the kind of future that we hope to have, isn't it? So Swaraj here refers to the indigenous, autochthonous, synonymous vocabulary, and freedom of the Indian masses and their spirit from the bondage that they keep, for example, superstition and so on, and at the same time having independent, autochthonous, indigenous mechanism to rule themselves. That is Swaraj, isn't it? Swaraj, if you just break down that word, Swaraj, you will find Swa in Sanskrit refers to self. Raj refers to rule. how do you self-rule? First of all, by uh, controlling the undesirable, for example, sometimes allurements and enticements which tend to destroy your soul and spirit. No, first of all, you value freedom and reason, no, and you have a sense of control. So Raj also refers to a sense of control over your own self, desires, and so on, moderation. And the other one is to have to rule your community with the help of other people. No, two senses: individual and the political sense in the Swaraj. I am just opening up it to you. So that is where the book starts, a classical book, again re-emphasizing, and the earliest you understand, the better it would be for you. I, here it is not given, but the Indian National Congress was the first one to officially demand that we want a constituent assembly based on adult suffrage, universal adult suffrage. What is adult suffrage? Right to vote to every individual above a particular age, qualification, threshold, whatever it is, no? So in our country, what is it? 18 years. It was earlier, it was 21 years. But in 1986, I think 61st constitutional amendment to change to 18 years. So that is what we are referring to when we are referring to the universal adult suffrage. The name is not given. You will find, if you do thorough, close study, M.N. Roy was the first person to demand a constituent assembly, independently elected constituent assembly, and that question also came into UPSC, NetJRF, and other big exams that here in India come. So my purpose is always to keep you in focus, oriented, so that you know what you are learning from the reading. No, learning outcome is also important in this learning outcome based curriculum framework that we are dealing with here. And the reading, of course, critical reading is the part and parcel of the same thing. So again, I missed a few things yesterday when I was giving the brief outline of sorry, one January 1947. Discussed in the assembly on 13th January, 13th November, objective resolution 1946. The first meeting of the assembly 9th November 1946, and then dissolved. The second meeting within that continuous meeting on 13th November 1946, wherein objectives resolution were discussed, which became the basis of the preamble of the Indian Constitution, and objectives resolution were duly passed after deliberation in the Constituent Assembly in January, I think, at the end of the January next year, the second sitting of the Assembly. Third sitting of the Assembly, April. All right, and then only fundamental rights were being discussed, not much, because there was this debate and discussion going on with respect to how to make the Muslim League and the Congress come together. They were not agreeing on anything. Okay, so that was a problem. You see this problem persisting even today. No, a cultural problem. Seeing difference, for example, among other people. Let me clarify it to you. I am not a great fan of Granville Austin, but I love his scholarship. While telling you who he was, I did miss a few things. He met all those people about whom he is talking. He talked to Nehru, went to discuss with Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, and then Rajendra Prasad, and so on. So he was an insider, knows, did detailed study of the Constituent Assembly deliberations as they were available. Even the most remote, inaccessible documents he had at his disposal. So the scholarship that you see on the Indian Constitution by Granville Austin is unparalleled in detail and the nuances, date by date, event by event, chronology by chronology. You people think that M. Lakshmikant or D.D. Basu would do justice to discuss the political side of the Indian Constitution, providing an introduction to Indian Constitution, but nothing could be better than Granville Austin. and you should be taking that particular observation at the face value and then trying to reassess by through your own reading what lies in the reading here. Reading very interesting, makes sense. So Granville asked him because he's an insider and he had a personal discussion over each of the footnotes and the sentences while writing the book. It's a classical reissue. The book is titled. If you go and check it out anywhere, you will find that these the microcosm of inaction. What is the full title of the book? Cornerstone of a Nation. No, this book is a classical reissue on Indian politics, typified by Oxford University Press. Okay, so it's a classical on Indian Constitution. So as I told you earlier, some things were missing, but when after the Government of India Act 1935, some federal provisions were envisaged. What is federal provision? Federal. Whenever you talk about the word federal, it refers to the point that the polity shall not be a centralized unit. Okay, it will not be a centralized one government unit. Means that you will have, suppose that this is a particular community or nation that you're talking about. So you will have a central government and it will take, for example, care of the defense, foreign affairs, communication, external security and so on. But then you will have local government devolution of power, delegation of power and responsibilities to other smaller units having their own self-government and their own way of implementing. Why is it needed, federalism? Because when you give power to local people, who better can understand their needs despite they themselves, no? For example, if somebody is sitting here in Delhi and thinking that we need to give water, electricity and so on, sanitation to lakhs of Indian villages, remote ones, no? How would they be able to do that? No, they wouldn't be able to do that because of the communication anomaly, the chain of command also. No, you understand the feasibility. So why is federalism desirable? Because federalism makes the art of governing easy and people centric. No, federalism is important in that manner. So Government of India Act 1935 envisaged for the first time that India shall be a federal polity and we will have elected central and provincial legislative assemblies, and we for the first time had elections in 1936. Congress formed the government, told you earlier, and that is where this Fazpur, Haripura and Tripura session of the Indian National Congress is very important, even very, very important. For example, in the context of the competitive exams, they always repeat that. What happened? The fight between Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose and Gandhi and Ambedkar was at its cruelest at that time. So a lot of division. At that time, Congress was also highly socialist. That is, before the World War and the success of the Soviet Union, you will have to have a global context, global world historical context, while making sense of any polity, especially with reference to India, because India sent so many soldiers in the World War II, and the memorial, the India Gate, of course, is here as an evidence. So India acquired a new strength of negotiation after the outbreak of the World War, because if you sent so much food for the European soldiers and you sent so many soldiers to fight for them, you will of course acquire some kind of agency. The word agency came in the reading, if you remember. So India could say something and the world would listen to it. So India acquired new power of negotiating and asserting that we need our own constitution and we will govern ourselves. We don't need anybody else's interference. We don't need a constitution formulated in the British Parliament. We need a constitution to which our people will sanction, and on the provisions of which, sections of which they will deliberate. And so But the line of argument in Granville Austin, of course, a liberal, I think, scholar, liberal scholar. Now, as we should always rephrase whatever we are reading, keeping the contemporary situation in account. Okay, so we now see that multicultural, uh, multilingual, and multi-ethnic polity is something which is struggling to emerge all around the world. In America, you have a lot of struggle. USA. In Europe, you have a lot of struggle going on because of that unsettled principle. And the crux of the debate, let me state to you theoretically, you will find it told you earlier also, the confrontation between the group rights and the individual rights. In one constitution, either you give all the power, all the agency to the individual or to the group, they both not, they cannot cohabit together. It's not what compatible together, not compatible together. Told you by example, for example, if you give a particular community a particular group right, and that particular community exploits a particular individual in that group, and that particular person approaches the court, and court says that that particular community will keep on exploiting you because that particular enjoys group rights. No, so the individual right or the group right, you have to take a side. But the debate is not that easy and clear cut. The contradiction probably somewhere to be found, and a middle way probably. But we all must understand that the situation here in the reading is one of deep animosity around the world, outbreak of the World War, Nazism, fascism, and other than that, contending ideas about how to progress in the future and what would be the future of the colonized countries when the war ends. So it is in that framework that you will be reading Granville Austin, and if you somehow, through hard work and close scrutiny, complete the chapters because they are good ones, they make sense, by the way, easy ones. No, the only outstanding thing in this book is the detail. And why outstanding? Because the devil lies in the detail. No, the more detail you have, the better context you get. So you don't have to cram up anything, and so all these words, indigenous and so on, coming up. The case where so I told you the category Indologist, and the category within that the Indophobic and the Indophile. No, so Casey Weir is an Indophobic. Ivor Jennings, an Indophobic. People I was referring to when I told you that they were not hopeful that a country having so many illiterate people will be able to survive democratic system, isn't it? So Ivor Jennings is also autochthony, constitutional autochthony is a phrase used in studying of the constitution anywhere in the world. And if it was not clear to you, autochthony, I told you that autochthony here refers to indigenous, that is local, the one which is not imposed, from self-generating, autochthonous, auto, you see, self-generation, yes. So you will have to understand that the constitutional principle of constitutional autochthony in the context of the making of the Indian Constitution refers to our attempt to have the moral, ethical insight, and also the commitment that we will be able to draft a constitution, which we did actually, isn't it? Most of those people who were there, B.N. Rao, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, no, who else? The famous ones, I think we should remember, who played. This person was the chairman of the, I think, what is this, advisory committee of the Constitution. All right, B.N. Rao. Whenever you produce, the way I was telling you to draft a particular essay, in the same way a constitution is drafted. When you are trained into political science, you are actually at the most advanced level. You are trained to write a constitution, to legislate. And other than that, you are also trained in jurisprudence. The old name of political science is jurisprudence. That is to interpret, to understand the pronouncement of the highest court of law in a particular land. No? So, where was I? So, the situation I'm referring to, no? So, Haripura and Tripura Congress, they also said that we will have a constitution based on adult suffrage. And then yesterday's class, all of you who missed, I will just tell you a few more things. So, with respect to that, you know, at that time was Winston Churchill was the prime minister of UK, and he was a conservative. And there are stories, of course, but let me tell you one profound story. In 1942, Bengal had famine, a big famine. Do you know the reason of the famine? Sorry. Yes, for the war effort, the whole Bengal economy, the food and everything, utilized to give food to the European soldiers, including Indians there. No, so he said that we must win the war and let the Indians die. No, at that same time he called, of course, animosity. I do not intend, and you see quotes and become some kind of spiritual motivation leader and so on. In contemporary times, people read his quotes and shamelessly quote it. No, a big imperialist, shameless racist. That person calls Mahatma Gandhi naked fakir. You remember that time? So much contempt, hatred, envy, jealousy, and contempt for India. And India, in that particular sense, has not been foreign to all that feeling around the world since its inception, very inception. The country has been the gold sink, the richest in the world. I told you, no? There was a time when India used to get all the gold from the world for selling simple produce like peppers and cinnamon and cardamom. See? They would just simple things India selling to the world and balancing it with gold. No. So, for example, Greeks, if you go to the ancient history, in the 4th century, say that we will stop trading with India because they are getting all of our gold. We don't like it anymore. No. So, but they used to love luxury, and India used to provide that. No. So, what Winston Churchill says, what Casey Ware says, what Ivor Jennings says, what those who did not hope in the India say, of course, that very contempt comes from a very ancient history of, when the world was not able to write, of course, not to eulogize, not to praise unnecessarily. Indians had this strong scriptural presence around the world. Thousands of so we do not eulogize, because eulogizing and praising unnecessarily leads to othering, and it breaks a false pride, false consciousness, no, and which is the breeding ground of hatred, envy, jealousy, and so on. Those things which destroy whosoever harbors them, isn't it? So you have to stay away, highly rational and highly disciplined. That is what makes you a good scholar. Other than that, we move slowly only, because if we move fast, you will just lose the substance. I think substance is important, whatever little you could understand. I hope if there is any question about the background, which will continue, situation before the convening of the Indian Constituent Assembly on 9 December 1946, you will be able to write a few lines, isn't it, about it, no? Giving chronological overview, the politics behind it, the situation, global situation, the World War situation, the contending ideas, the factions in the Indian politics itself, no? So, but we have to be very careful, and we have to be critical. We do not praise any leader, okay? Because you yourself are leaders, no? That doesn't give anything. If you praise Jawaharlal Nehru or Mahatma Gandhi or anybody else, what would you get? Or, for example, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, or for that matter, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad or Rajendra Prasad or anybody else, no? What would you get? Nothing. You will suspend your reason for a moment. The moment you engage in eulogizing and praising and being enthralled and sway of the things that they did, you will, that very moment, emotion will take over, and you will forget what is reason to use and to understand, to critically analyze, and to make you thoughtful. These small uh, pieces of readings I'll be sharing along with the Constitution, and you have to be very carefully reading them, even if it is very, very difficult. Because if you do that, you'll be handsomely rewarded. You do not know about it now, but the reward is many more times than you can ever imagine today. You are not aware of it, and it is my job, incumbent upon me, to open up that possibility for you, that whatever you do, it will be multiplied by infinity only as you go ahead. There's no measure. So the more hard work you put, the more you struggle with your reading, the more you try to peep into it deeper and deeper, unfolding the layers of the reading. That is what makes you a good scholar, the main objective. To be able to understand the power of sentences and the weakness in them. Okay, so that's all from my side. We will move ahead only with the reading. Okay, I'll be moving to the fundamental rights, as you see. The first ones to be discussed in the Constituent Assembly, and also next section in our syllabus. So I'll be completing this reading uh, section by section. We have sections, I think. The next section is India in microcosm. No, so you do India in microcosm today. After discussing the keywords in that particular section, tomorrow I'll be going to the India in microcosm. What was the situation at that time? Okay, and stay together, help each other.